So we now move to the second panel. The second panel is on converting customers into evangelists with contextual experiences. That can be quite a challenge in today's day and age of digital offerings and increasing competition and brand loyalty really going, diminishing faster than you think. So we have a fantastic panel again to take on this subject, and let's do the introductions. We have Dharmender Narang. He's the Chief Customer Experience Officer at IIFL Securities. We have KV Dipu, the President and Head of Operations and Customer Service at Bajaj Allianz General Insurance.
Join me in welcoming Ratan, Kesh, EVP and Head Retail Operations and Service, Axis Bank. We also have with us Subramanyam Iyer, Senior Vice President and Head Customer Experience at DBS Bank India, and Keyur Dhami, VP Customer Success, WebEngage. Welcome to all of you. Alokesh, according to a study in 2020, more than 30% of consumers switched their bank providers in the past 6 to 12 months due to good competitive pricing, high customer service quality, or good value for money. In fact, the same report also states that 61% of BFSI customers expect to have access to more online interactions across their entire customer life cycle, underlying the need perhaps for the BFSI sector to have, what the Americans call super fans among their customers. And in this context, how important are brand evangelists for you in retaining your customers?
Indeed, how important are brand evangelists, right? And brand evangelists can come from your customers, can come from your employees also, right? So let me go to Ratan Kesh. First, Ratan Kesh from Axis Bank. And Ratan Kesh, you can want to tell us something about brand evangelization. If we look at it, it's really a fancy word for word of mouth, right? That is what it used to be earlier. Your word of mouth promotion is what actually gets you the real thing. Now we say, okay, you're a brand evangelist, right? So, but has digital, experience helped create more brand evangelists? And what really constitutes a powerful digital experience that can create such brand evangelists? You want to take this?
Yeah, so thanks, Alokesh. Thanks, Suchetana, for this wonderful introduction. Glad to be here. So I think let me actually address the point starting from where Alokesh pointed out that employee experience is closely linked with the brand experience. So in today's context with COVID coming in, we saw two kinds of brand evangelists coming together and actually converging. One set of people have been that we actually had to operate our branches with 40% capacity because we had to maintain distancing, social distancing, etc. And we had to do tons of things with all the hygiene and standards to be maintained, etc. So people who had to walk into the branches to get some basic services which they could not do online at that point to begin with, they were thrilled and delighted to see the level of empathy and the whole standard that we maintain in our branches. And it was very surprising for me to note that in just about 6 weeks, our customer experience score moved from 67 to 75. And that's actually phenomenal. It never happens. And that happened in the middle of COVID. So the human element, which we talk about as Axis Bank, as Dil Se Open, actually played out in a very significant manner. That's at one side. The other side, from before COVID, let's say BC world to during COVID world, DC world, we saw from a 60-40 physical to digital, it became 10-90. So our account opening moved completely online. We could actually do a video KYC based account opening. Our service request transaction moved to almost 90% online. Now, because we had some of the journeys ready, the customer adoption improved and they could find the seamlessness of providing and getting banking services. And therefore their comfort and convenience improved the brand evangelism. So all of these went back and really spoke so high about the bank and the various services that we've been doing. Now that was still, we were developing a lot of products and we were fast tracking some of the journeys. So it happened during this COVID itself. So that's how I would like to look at it.
I'll take that cue to Mr. Narang of IIFL. You were in the previous panel, we were talking about the importance of vernacular today to reach out to customers. You guys were one of the first to launch a free markets app 6 years back and also an early mover in exploring Indian languages on that app. So how are you creating evangelists out of happy customers?
Thanks, Sujita and Alokesh. So thanks for inviting me. I would like to add 2-3 things very quickly. Number one is, as you already pointed out, that we have been the very few in the beginning itself coming up with our market app, and we are basically very strong technology-driven company. So that was the strength for us when we moved into COVID system. And we have two challenges actually, basically. Number one was where lockdown has started. Number two, there was a huge crash in the market. At the same time, there was a V-shaped recovery where market has gone up. So, and to I think to add to it, then there was a huge inflow of new customers coming into the stock market. So there where the capability is being tested for us. And for us, what it has done is actually it has what I call it, adoption has become much faster. There's a huge adoption. If you talk about our market, IIFL market today, it has 4.5 million downloads. So which is a huge jump. And people were open to any new technological advancement available. Earlier, we find that like we started with chatbot, very few usage. And that usage has gone up. Like today, we have around 1 lakh customer using it, and they have we in a month, and we have around 4.5 lakh messages being interacted with the chatbot. So that is the level of what you call adoption is there, and the speed which we are able to satisfy the customer. Now coming to creating evangelists. So I think that is the next level. So one is you adopt a technology, customer adopt the technology, and then when you are in sync, the expectation goes up. Now next expectation is to create a differentiation where your faster execution, your faster delivery becomes more important to you. So that is where we have been successful. We have a huge number of new customers joining in. There's a huge, though the market has helped, but the way that it has been adopted and the way we are able to see the spikes, and that is where we started interacting more digitally with the customer. If you look at chatbot, there was one interaction level was earlier it used to be only FAQ. Then we integrated in such a way that everything what he wants is available on that. And if it drops down, then you have an online chat agents available. And even if it is still required, you can create queries and all that. And what on top of it done is, because a lot of customers who joined was new. So what we did now is that we give them the suggestion how to go about. Suppose if someone wants to trade in derivatives, he has a guide, he has our products like Sensibles. If someone wants looking for stocks, we advise him he can go for advanced research, which is a product available with us. So we actually proactively engage and proactively tell him how to take it forward. So where that when you are able to create that bonding, that is where he find the differentiation. That is where he find the engagement. That is where you are able to retain those customers.
Fantastic. Let me now take this question to DVS. The same question, and how do you deliver exceptional, experiences at every single touch point? How do you integrate the experience across things? And also considering the fact that DVS, it's been 5 years since you stake claim to be India's first fully digital bank, right? So you've got a lot of talking to do on this aspect. You want to just enlighten?
Absolutely, Alokesh. Thank you for the invitation, and good morning to all the fellow panelists as well. Yes, while COVID came in and it was kind of completely worldwide, it also provided opportunity, right? And Alokesh, as you rightly said, we were the first ones to bring in digital banking out here about in the year 2016, and that actually gave us a little bit of a head start, right? In terms of what do we have in terms of the customer journey, how do we digitize, how do we make it closer to the customer, right? I mean, all of us on the panel, all of us means in our friends and families, everybody got impacted, and there was a certain anxiety that people went through, right? And what it also kind of enabled us on two fronts. One is looking at it from the customer's point of view. The adoption, all of our parents and so on and so forth, the so-called the senior citizens and stuff, even the digital adoption has kind of grown multifold, and that has actually kind of given a blessing in disguise to all the organizations to kind of speed up and accelerate the digital adoption. I mean, probably at least a good 3, 4, 5 years is what people have traveled in this particular journey. What it also provides, what does the customer expect, right? I mean, in terms of a digital experience, what does the customer expect is security. The second one probably is reliability and dependability. How easy is the journey? And that actually, kind of adds up to the end objective of creating trust. Once you create trust, you are then, kind of able to get the customers back onto the app, and kind of they go back and use your products and services to ensure that the customers' jobs to be done are taken care. So that, keeping the customer at the center, how do you get all of your journeys and everything, understanding what are the customer jobs to be done, and thereby, kind of creating solutions is what, we adopt.
Mr. Iyer, as well as Mr. Narang, both of you have mobile apps which look at creating a personalized journey for the customer by engaging more. But I'll bring this question to Mr. KV Dipu. So for the insurance sector, your biggest brand ambassador has been the friendly neighborhood agents, right? Who we always go to, who always comes to us to remind us about the premium payment, etc. So do you think they are your biggest brand evangelists as well? And do you think in this world, which is going largely phygital, that perhaps this agent has outlived his or her relevance?
Well, Suchetana, you got your first part of the the question right, which is that the agent is the key distribution point from an insurance perspective. As far as your second part is concerned, no, agents have not outlived their utility. Agents continue to exist. The reason is, insurance is a push product, and it's a distribution-led business. So what has happened is during COVID-19, digitization has not replaced agents. Rather, digitization has enabled agents. When everybody was working from home and you had no paperwork, agents were enabled, so they could issue policies from their side. They could offer, customers, services from their side. And everything, happened without any paper. Even when we had to train them, we sent across, our training modules in the form of short videos over WhatsApp. So they would see those videos, understand how to, carry out functions, and then, get going. Now, coming to the larger question, which Alokesh and you asked, in terms of how do we get, customers or partners to become brand evangelists. One of the challenges of speaking last is, a lot of points have already been covered by the earlier speakers. So I'll try and pick up something unique. We all know that the accent in the past has been on digitizing the physical, because everybody has had to do it. But now the accent is on humanizing the digital, because customers are increasingly coming back and saying that while bots and digital assets can be clinical and consistent, but they also need a healing touch. Because when customers typically call up a firm, they're not calling for a happy reason, right? They're calling because they have some issue to be fixed. So they need care, they need empathy, and they need a healing touch. So today, everybody is trying to see how bots can, mimic, human interaction. So which is why you see conversational AI coming to the fore, which is why, you're increasingly, hearing talks of man and machine coming together. So just to give you, maybe one example, from what we have done. In case a customer avails of our chatbot, and if the bot is not able to carry out the activity, because a bot is taught from all previous interactions, the customer is not asked to terminate the chat and then, maybe call up the call center or go to the website and then, state his complaint all over again. Instead, a human being takes over, and he carries it through, seamlessly to conclusion. And all these exceptional, scenarios are then inventorized, and then, we teach the bot. So the bot is all the time, learning. And if you look at customer NPS scores, NPS studies show that if you're able to resolve the customer's query in one single shot, the NPS can be as high as 96. Break it just once into 2 steps, and it can fall to as low as 65. So I think this whole idea of humanizing the digital, I think is the way forward for customers to become brand evangelists.
And it will be the day when customers reach out to you not with a problem, but just to say thank you, no?
That also happens already, because the digital world also makes it easy for customers to access.
Yes.
So therefore, we do get a lot of appreciation as well.
Fantastic. And Keyur, you are the man of the moment, because you are the head of customer success at WebEngage, right? And what would these gentlemen and others in the audience not do to get that right, customer success? So give us some tips in terms of, what we are talking about here, and the role of a MarTech platform, to help accelerate campaigns, data analytics, and how can digital, when we are talking about a world where we are saying that there's too much digital, you need to have the human presence, don't forget the person behind the machine, right? How do you ensure that the person behind the machine remains relevant even with your kind of digital tools?
Sure. Firstly, thanks for inviting me, and good morning to fellow panelists and the audience. I concur with Dipu, where agents are not gone actually, in fact, there have been cases where we end up doing MarTech or, engagement strategies for agents as well. Making them evangelists is important because India as a market is very agent driven in certain segments, not to lose out, the consumers as well. I fondly remember, and I would like to quote a few examples, which have worked for customers, around a few years back, I think a couple of years back. I fondly remember one of the campaigns that was run by, a brand, TSP, and that campaign was twofold. One was trying to give a user an experience of what they have done in the entire year, how they have, done it against their peers, as well as there was a separate campaign being run for different set of individuals, which were taking, your funds from an agent. And in that case, the agent was also, there was a handle, a Twitter, link that you was sent where you will thank your agent as well. So, that's where the human element comes in. While you are sending out campaigns to individuals, you are sending very personalized communication to them, telling how they have fared against competition, like in general, whether they have invested in SIP, they have not invested, telling them pinpointed things, how they can better on their own portfolio. But alongside, if you are investing through an agent, you also thank your agent because he's the one who has led you out over there. So some of these human elements are very important. Even when we talk about, integrations, and when we talk about planning any of the journeys or, campaigns for any, any brand, we also take into account what are the physical touch points, what are the touch points that are happening with the call center agent. And we ensure that we play well, gel along well with those touch points. It should not happen that your, call center agent is calling a customer to, helping you out fill a form. And on in parallel, your MarTech platform is just saying, buy this, buy that, doing some other promotion. You have to make sure where in the cycle, digital cycle, the user is, or in the physical world the user is, and ensure that all of these play along together. So it's very important to know these touch points happening in physical world, in digital world, as well as in an offline world that might be happening, maybe over a call center, and ensure that you have all of these binded together. And that's where we play typically a role in terms of that, making sure that we have a 360-degree view, and then how do we go around touching these consumer journeys.
Right. Keyur, you spoke about humanizing the digital approach of companies. Keeping with that, you cannot deny the human being as a storyteller and his or her impact as a brand evangelist. Look at what Richard Branson has done to the Virgin Group. Or, for example, how American Express or Singapore Airlines, they believe that their employees are their biggest brand evangelists. So I'll come to Mr. Iyer on this. Can Sachin Tendulkar do that for you, or do you think that your employees are your biggest brand evangelists?
So without a doubt, right? I mean, each and every employee represents the brand. So whatever you do, right? I mean, so, something that we have, you need those brand icons, no doubts at all. But ultimately, each one of us, each one of the employees, each one of the teams, that we have, they, for their own friends and families and for the people whom they know, they become the brand evangelists, for the respective brand that they carry, right? What we also do is, I mean, because of the huge workforce that we have, right? We, the most important, activity that we do in DBS is getting into a workshop which has all cross-functional teams to solve for a customer's problem. Right? Or even if we are able to go back and identify or preempt what is going to come in, and getting everybody together, right, from the tech to the the back-end ops and so on and so forth, exactly what kind of Dipu also mentioned about. It is extremely important for all of these functions to go back and ensure that the ultimate output that you deliver to the customer in terms of the experience is co-owned by series of sets of functions, and absolutely each and every employee then kind of considers himself or herself to be the representative of the brand.
Okay, and that brings us to one of my favorite questions, which is basically how do you deliver the same kind of experience to your customers across all the channels, right? Because when somebody calls me, how do you ensure that a customer experience does not transform into a customer nightmare, right? Where the customer is bombarded with unnecessary and ill-informed telemarketers who don't know who they're calling, right? And don't know that they called me like 30 seconds ago, right? And of course, technology has a lot of role to play in that. But as the heads of customer experience in your organizations, how do you ensure, what kind of strategy do you follow to ensure that there's a dashboard or there's something to ensure that there's consistency, right, in how you're approaching the consumers, right? So, this question to Dipu, Dharmender, and Ratan, Kesh.
So, Alokesh, it's a good question. I think why firms have various challenges, because you need to give a choice to customers, because different customers are comfortable with different channels. Some people like calling the call center, some are comfortable on WhatsApp, some are very digitally savvy. So it's always about giving a choice to customers. Now, how do firms or leaders manage a uniform experience? That was a query that you had asked across all these channels. It basically revolves around a few pillars. One is Alokesh, to pick cue from what you said. It's also about managing, right? Because we can only manage what you measure. So one is we take customer feedback when they have interactions with us. So whether it's the call center, rating the call, or whether it is through WhatsApp or whether it is through the app, they share their experience. When they share their experience, we know what are the strengths, and obviously we continue to invest in them. And we also know what are the focus areas which we need to work on, and therefore we do that. So you do that to continuously ensure that the channel is aligned to what customer expectations are. That's point number one. Point number two is each channel can be slightly unique, right? Because call centers, for example, work on IVR, right? You have to basically go through before you connect, right? Some other channels maybe one-to-one, right? So then you also have a channel specific strategy by which you try to maximize the effectiveness in each channel, because you can't compare channels beyond a point. We need to ensure a uniform experience, but you can't compare experience of each channel beyond a point, because each one is slightly unique, and that's the reason they exist. If they were common, then why would you have two different channels, right? They exist because they are unique. So then you try and measure it like I said, and then within that channel you fix the features. So these are two things that we do. The third thing, and I'm digressing slightly from your core topic, how the omni-channel experience helped us, especially when COVID-19 happened, was when suddenly call centers shut down, had these other assets not been offered, other options not been offered, then we would not have been in a position to offer uninterrupted service to customers. That's also a way by which we had to ensure uniform experience, because call center customers overnight migrated to digital assets. And you will be pleasantly surprised to know that at that time, our customer complaints fell by 90%. So if a customer complaints fell, it meant that they were getting as good an experience as the call center, or an even better experience with digital channels, because we had built those journeys. So I think that is proof of the pudding, that we ensured, a uniform experience.
Just to take it forward, where Dipu has left. At IIFL Securities, okay, I completely agree with the Alokesh point that consistent experience across channels is very, very critical. So first thing, whenever we look at any new initiative which is going to be offered, the first thing is how to keep the experience without disturbing the overall setup. So the most important is our platform where we have a relationship management which is connected to every channel. So it is the same. So there is only single client for us. Whichever channel he comes, we know the history of the client. So whether the agent is handling, whether the online chat is handling, whether it is our system is handling. So he is able to see the complete history. So any interaction level, whenever he comes, that we know what has been done on the back end. So every channel is connected to single platform. That is the strength of the omni-channel, what we talk about. Therefore, even if he has interacted previously on chat and then raise a query, we know what the interaction has taken place and what is the issue raised. Similarly, if he has moved to probably chatbot is not able to answer, he moved to say online chat agent who is taking the handover. Still, we know the case is getting created in the same CRM system. So everything is a single point of contact when we are responding to the client. So that helps a lot. Similarly, whenever like now we have started, earlier we started with chatbot, now we have introduced WhatsApp, service on WhatsApp. Our channel remains the same, our core remains the same. So everything again getting integrated to one relationship management system, so that we are able to track and we are able to understand where the customer is coming from. And just taking it forward with, say, okay, I think no digital channel can replace a physical human being. But the most important, how it has helped us over a last period, is that it has taken over the scalability part of it. See, client is coming with a pain, but if you look and analyze, more than 60 to 70% are not actual pain areas. It's more of a educative thing, more of a information gathering, more of a where he's not able to access things. So how that is where your simplified UI, simplified interactions, tree-based solutions helps you, where you are able to give him basics. When there is a pain, then your agent is available, who is able to give more time, more bandwidth, and give him a more satisfaction to it. So that is where the digital and the physical agents gel in. So if you have to improve, you have to hit the core. Earlier, what was happening, your major part was getting choked just to guide the client. So that part is being taken care of completely by digital. So nobody will come to you because how to access this, how to get my report, how to get, everything is available. So I think it is same for every organization, because these are basics. But how to take it forward where actually customer gets a pain, then your agent has to be there to pacify, to take it over and give it a next level of satisfaction where you call it delight.
I'll take the same question to Ratan Kesh. Your inputs when we talk about customer experience in a phygital world, how do you maintain uniformity in ensuring customer satisfaction between the physical and the digital world?
Yeah, there are two parts to this. One is the internal to the organization. Internal would mean employees, technology systems, and the channels. And the other side is actually have the customer. So what happens is that most often in the pre-COVID world or in a less digital world, you would have designed journeys which are meant for a physical channel separately, for a different call channel separately, and for example, an internet banking, mobile banking channel separately. But what is happening more and more, and which is our endeavor, today you actually create the journey as one. For example, if you want to change address, I have got one single journey. You want to change the address by coming to internet banking, use the same journey. You want to do it on the call center, the agent will do on behalf of you. And if you go to the branch will actually use the same journey on behalf of the customer, which essentially means there is a seamlessness in the journey which you create. So that's one digital asset that you create and render it through different. That actually essentially ensures uniformity. That's at one level. And I think all the other speakers, they spoke about saying that whenever you are actually having any interaction with the customer, ability of an organization to capture the interaction at every single touch point is important. So we are building data lake wherein if you have come to a chat, there is an impression created for the chat. And then if you go to call center, he or she knows that you tried doing something in chat and you could not get it. And therefore the context gets carried forward from there on. And that's something very important. Now, quickly to address what Alokesh mentioned about the marketing calls. And I think that is something which is very, very important. And we are finding in digital world, people are sitting at home, the marketing agent, the sales guys, they constantly keep calling. Now there again, is very important to have a very strong data warehousing capability with which product the customer is likely to buy, make that call, and then the closed looping is very important. If the customer said that, no, I don't want PL, don't make the call second time. So that closed looping is happening more often, which is where I think tech partners are playing a significant role. So the fintech and banks are working together to make it happen. Let me just make one last point of how we are making things very, very simple for customers. Like for an SME loan, previously you needed to fill in lots of documentation, give your banking account statement, proof, etc., etc. Now that has become so seamless. We can do it 24/7 in the internet banking or the mobile banking. You just key in few data points, put your GSTN number, and ping from the GSTN side. You can pre-populate everything, do credit rule engine instantly, and actually give the loan instantly to you. So that's the power of technology which is coming in, which is not only to improve customer experience, but also really creating brand evangelists in that sense.
Okay, fantastic. And, Keyur, there is a question that I had for you, and there is another question from the audience which sort of matches and adds a little value to it. So I'll ask you both, right?
Sure.
And essentially, this whole thing about the customer journey, and because you are like WebEngage, a digital tool that helps organizations, BFS organizations, retain customers and give them good, journeys. right? How can you help understand customer journeys to craft a life cycle marketing strategies and hyper personalized kind of experiences, right? And that was my question. And I'm just coming to the audience part, which is basically customers are also very security conscious, yet they want contextual communication, right? So how then can you go ahead with collating data for personalization?
Right. I think some of these points have been touched upon right now with the current audience, current panelists. They mentioned about creating these data lakes, so to say, where interactions from different points, be it digital, be it physical, that are going in the same data lake. We more often than not connect to the same data lakes in order to fetch information. But I might not require the entire information. I might just require some metadata when it comes to security. So I'm answering both parts right now. So I don't need the exact information that has happened, interaction that has happened when it comes to a marketing perspective. But I definitely need to know whether it was a happy customer, it was a sad customer, whether they were interested in personal loans, like Ratan mentioned, or whether they were not interested in a personal loan. Getting that level of information that is required for marketing to then promote certain products or not promote certain products is very important. So I don't need the exact chat that has happened, but I definitely need to know the metadata about that particular chat. And that's what we try to break silos. So more often than not, banking and the BFSI segment has a lot of data. It's just that we need to get the data which is relevant for a marketer, relevant for a product-based communication into our platform, so that while we don't breach on the security aspect, we get data that is required just for the personalization or humanization of the communication to happen. And that's a part of what we do within our onboarding practices, where we tend to understand these different touch points, tend to understand where are they going into, be it a data lake, be it a CRM system that are being used, and then utilize that to get that information into the hands of marketer, only the relevant information out of it.
Right. I'll take one question to Mr. Iyer. The work actually of an evangelist is basically storytelling, but it has to be also through omni-channels of communication for your customers to get it. So how do you use an evangelist or a storytelling or a story across to your customer?
So I'll just answer that in a moment. Just I had one related point to what Keyur mentioned. I'll just touch upon that for 30 seconds and then move on to your question. Whatever we discussed so far is what the customer takes, right? I mean, in terms of customer interaction and so on and so forth. But what technology, what it has, kind of enabled all of us is the amount of time spent on the app on each and every screen, right? So for example, if there is a drop, customer is buying a personal loan, for example, customer is dropped. What do you do? How intelligently do you, kind of capture that as a data and go back and solve for, right? I mean, there could be something wrong technologically, or there could be, something wrong in the way you communicate to the customer, right? And communication, even in the digital framework, is so very critical and so very important. We spoke about data lake. There is abundance of data that all the organizations are able to put together through customer interactions, through whatever is happening on the app, and capturing the customer preferences. Once you put all of this together, you have an extremely strong backbone that you are able to fall upon and to create what does the customer really want. So moving away from the products and services that we offer, and to kind of provide so what are the customer's jobs to be done? Because chahiye kya customer ko, right? I mean, so gone are the days when all of us, we used to accompany our parents to walk into a branch of a bank, and that typically used to happen on a Saturday and stuff like that. But you provide all of these channels, all the availability across all of these channels, and then leave it at the convenience of the customer. That to me is extremely critical, and that is where the customer also has evolved. It is extremely important for all of us as organizations to align to what the customer requires, and that is where you will clearly be able to strike a call.
Fantastic. And we're almost out of time. In fact, we're actually out of time, but there's one rather interesting question from a member of the audience, which I will take to the panel, and then we'll wrap up. And this is Dr. Mrityunjaya Rao Mangipudi. He's an adjunct professor at the Mallareddy University in Hyderabad. And of course, he starts with saying that maybe it is out of place to ask this question, but Professor Rao, it's never out of place to ask a question. And he says that in this context of creating new brand evangelists, can somebody tell him, because he's a professor in this university, in what way the academia or higher education institutions can contribute to this objective? Is there some way, any scope for universities and those who bring in the next generation of the workforce to create brand evangelists at the campuses itself? Anybody wants to take that question?
I think it's a good question, and also happy to see academia wanting to contribute to this. So I can think of 2-3 ways by which academia can contribute. One, firms do a lot of projects, so academia can get involved. Students who can come in for assignments and then contribute. That's one. The other is when we look at the way curricula in academic institutions evolve. They should be agile enough to pick up a lot of trends from the corporate sector, including topic like this, and then include it in their as a module, because then you can make it much more structured and institutionalized. So these are 2 ways I can think of. And the third is that if they get involved in discussions like this, they can be cross fertilization of ideas. So I can think of these 3 ways right up front.
So let me get a couple of more pointers where academia can help. Look, first of all, getting customer information and really getting the true experience of customer is something very, very important. Students can actually garner that by talking to the real customers and give lots of insight to the institution like banks, what products the customers would like, what services they like. So that more of less of that feedback that can come through from them. Second, I think recently I came across a course which is called BBA Customer Experience. And I think that to me is a very exciting sort of step being taken by some of the institutes. So if one can design a course on how to BBA on banking experience or a customer experience or AI and ML, I think some of these courses can be done jointly between the bank and the academia, some of the universities, and we can co-curate the program and really create sort of incoming employees who can then be adopted in the companies who are already way ahead in the journey of understanding technology, understanding banking, understanding experience in banking.
I'll take that question to Mr. Narang. Forever our government and regulators have been talking about how to tap into household savings and ensure that money pours into the equities market. But perhaps for that, education has to play a bigger role, right? And when we get out of school, we do not know anything about the financial markets or the instruments there. Maybe a course on that, maybe a subject on that, even at the +2 level.
I think you are at the right place, the way you started it, because I was just about to contribute the same. Because there's a lot of initiative taken by, actually, no denying that. They go to the investors, do these shops, workshops. But if you look at the from ground level, that education is still not there. If you look at our education system, till the time you're passed out and you have the interest in stock market, you will never come to know what's happening there. So we have seen this small change coming in because of digitalization and a lockdown. The generation Z who is coming into the market, but there is no formal education happening at the initial phase. So it could be a part of probably someone doing a particular stream of education. So he will come to know. At a general level or a broad level, people or the students are not given any education in terms of how investing should be done, how they should plan it. So every generation is moving so fast. They're probably coding, they're learning from probably 6th standard now. Okay, so nobody takes an initiative saying that how to teach them how to invest, because you know that it's always compounding which helps. The early you start, the early you gain, the more you gain. So those concepts are not being taught. So that is where there's a big gap between the two, and somewhere that has to come into picture, because you can't leave it to SEBI, you can't leave it to exchanges to do it. Somewhere that has to come into curriculum how to do it, because it's a much bigger thing to do. So they have to understand before they step into the probably in the corporate world. It could be any of the field they adopt. End of this day, their saving should be intelligent. They cannot learn after they join. So they should know their what is the right strategy they need to adopt. So that is where they will make money, they will create wealth, and that is where probably the country will go into a different level or two.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, the power of compounding reminds me also that my home loans maybe itna compounding ho gaya ki, it's really now beginning to what I'm supposed to pay for the house. I ultimately end up paying 3 times for it, over a 20-year period. So anyway, thank you, gentlemen, for joining this panel. It was really wonderful having you all with us. Thank you very much. Please stay on for the next panel that we are going to have on technology. That's also going to be very relevant to you.
Thank you very much for taking the time out to join us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks a lot.